Good morning. Welcome back to Sober Social. This week I want to talk about self-sabotage. For the past week or two, I have been struggling to get myself on a consistent and professional work schedule. And in order to do that, I think the most important piece there is the sleep schedule, right? If I can get to bed at a decent time and then wake up as planned, and I can do that consistently, the work schedule throughout the day is much, much easier. And so that's why, I've come out here to shoot for you guys about 8 o'clock in the morning as an example of what, like, the power of some of the strategies and techniques I'm going to share with you in this video, aiming to, first of all, understand in a different light what self-sabotage is and exactly why we do it in the first place. Why do we sabotage ourselves at all? So then we can better understand for the second section the strategies that I'm going to share with you to overcome it and eradicate it from your life completely, so that you no longer have to suffer that debilitating paralysis, that debilitating discouragement that self-sabotage brings to your life, that I'm so familiar with and I'm passionate about, sharing as much as I am able to eliminate from my life. I want to share with you as well. So let's get started with understanding in a different light exactly what it is and why we do it. Self-sabotage is a protective strategy and a coping mechanism. As a protective strategy, it protects us from the unknown. When we, in pursuit of change, whatever change for ourselves, it's inevitable that it's unfamiliar territory, right? It's new territory, and for that reason, we don't know exactly what to expect. And if we're not fearful of it, at the very least, it's uncomfortable, at least in the very beginning. It protects us against negative associations that we might have tethered to what we believe, what we want as success, that we might be aware of and we might not be aware of. So as an example, let's say that with making more money, you believe that you have to be very, very busy, or you have to be very, very strenuously working all the time. You have to be away from your friends, away from your family. Maybe you have to sacrifice some of your values in order to make all of that money. All of those are negative associations, and conscious or not, they could be deterring you from fully wanting to be striving towards success, which gets back to that point from the last video about clarity. We kind of want it, but we kind of don't, right? We want the success, but the negative associations that we have tethered to it, we don't want. The last thing that it protects us against that I have written here is what I call incongruence. And this is the most deeply personal example of what self-sabotage protects me against, or did, especially back in the day, because as you guys know, I'm a teetotaler, and not drinking, going out to the bars for the first time, I was very, very frightened of this, very fearful of this, feeling like I wasn't where I belonged. I didn't belong in the bar because I don't drink, and I felt like I would be kind of exposed, or I ran the risk of being exposed as a non-regular, like I wasn't supposed to be there. I was going to be exposed as a fraud. And for that reason, this is one of the things that if I ever did sabotage myself, one of the biggest reasons that I did so was to protect myself against that incongruence, feeling and behaving in a way that is not consistent with who I believe myself to be, which is, again, why I really emphasize in this channel identity, and really bringing yourself to believe yourself, not to turn on and off this social game that you want to play, but to really just ingrain it into who you are in the deepest, truest sense of your being, of the depth of your being. In that way, this incongruence is not a problem at all. And it's, by the way, it's also much easier, much more effective, and much more fun. And then as a coping mechanism, what I mean here, as a coping mechanism, self-sabotage allows us to cope with conflicting motivations. And with that, basically the simplest way that I can put it to you is that on the one hand, we really want to succeed, but on the other hand, we really don't want to fail. So it's like a battle between our desire to succeed and our fear of failure. Our desire to succeed pushing us forward, driving action, and our fear of failure stifling action, keeping us drawn back and inside of that shell. If both of those motivations are very high, it creates a situation where we feel stuck. Another way to put that, especially in the social arena, is you have the desire to express yourself, right? You want to dance, you want to speak, you want to flirt, you want to sing and play and just have a good time, but you also want to protect yourself against embarrassment. You don't want to say something wrong, you don't want to trip, you don't want to look like a fool on the dance floor or whatever it is. And so you want to express yourself, but you also want to protect yourself. You want to promote the ideally one outcome that you have in mind that you want, and you want to prevent, on the other hand, the other side of the coin, which is the conflicting motivation, is that you want to prevent the 10,000 outcomes that you don't want to see. And that's the problem, right? There's one ideal outcome that you're trying to promote, but if your attention is consumed by the 10,000 things that you're trying to prevent, then it's going to get the upper hand, and therefore you're going to be stifled out of action, or in some other way you're going to sabotage yourself. So beginning with the unknown, the first strategy here is to simply embrace it. Rather than wanting to protect yourself against what is new and unfamiliar and uncomfortable, just remind yourself, and I mean, I understand it's not like I can just ask you to flip a switch and be like, oh, okay, now I'm really comfortable with the unknown. And there's a bunch of bugs right in front of me. Or something. I understand that it's not just the flip of a switch, but remind yourself, and maybe use the strategies from last video, the frames and the visualization, to make yourself view uncertainty as a good thing. Because I promise you, my friend, if you frame it in that way, it is exciting, it's stimulating, it's fun, it's enlivening. The newness of interaction and the fact that it is by its very nature spontaneous and novel, and you can't prepare for it ahead of time like you can an exam, that to me is one of the biggest perks. It's one of the most exciting things about it, and that's one of the reasons that I'm so in love with this game. So take yourself out of that frame of uncertainty and novelty is something to be afraid of or something to protect yourself against or from, and rather embrace it. Embrace it as your own, embrace that chaos, and make it something that you look forward to tasting every time you go out. With respect to the negative associations, there's a couple of steps here. The very first one is to first identify what they are, right? I mean, if you don't know what your associations are that are holding you back, you're not going to be able to do anything about them. So first identify what about whatever success you're talking about, and again, this doesn't have to be social, but with respect to the social journey that we're on, let's say that you associate being really good with women with misogyny. Is that a word? Being misogynistic, womanizing, and like disrespecting women. If you associate that with success with women, identify that, first of all. That's the first step. But then the next step is to condition yourself to have a healthier belief, a more accurate belief. I mean, of course, if you believe that it requires you to be misogynistic to be good with women, and then you're willing to do that, that's going to be your reality, and then it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can respect the hell out of women and yet be very, very good with them. You know what I mean? But that's a choice that you have to make. Make that association, or identify the association and condition it so that it's more healthy. And if you want more specific direction on exactly how to go about doing that, I would recommend just checking out Tony Robbins. This is what his whole game is about: identifying the associations that are currently present, how they're holding you back, and then reconditioning your nervous system to act in a different way. He's got like it trademarked or whatever, I think it's neuro linguistic programming, NLP. Anyway, read up on that, watch some free YouTube videos. I'm just giving you the brief, core points here. Now, with respect to incongruence, this is, again, I mentioned in the last section, now this is a very, very deeply personal block that I used to suffer from because I'm a teetotaler and because I wanted to go out to the bars and I felt so out of place. Here, this is the way I'm going to describe this to you, okay? Every time you have an opportunity to self-sabotage, you are facing the decision of death and death. And what I mean by that is you have the choice between either who you are and who you've been, dying, and who you want to become, who you've now learned who you want to become, dying. You can choose between the death of who you've been and who you are, or the death of what you want. And the strategy here to eliminate the risk of incongruence is to simply choose to allow the self that was and the self that is now in the way of what you want to be the one that dies. Allow that death to occur, and I know that it's maybe easier said than done, right? But that is the decision you have to make. We cannot move forward until we let go of the patterns that have made up who we are today and in the past. And then finally, with the coping mechanism, you remember how I separated success and failure, your desire for success, and that pushes you forward, but your fear of failure stifles you back, right? My strategy for you here, like I mentioned earlier, if your motivation for success and your motivation to avoid failure are both very, very high, you are here on this graph. And what we're aiming to do is to not mess with your success motivation, or if anything, we grow it, right? But the fear motivation is what we really want to alter, and what we want to do is to simply lower it. And so the way I've described it here is to cool your fear of failure. Cool it down. Like, imagine it's heated, it's very hot right now, it's heated up, and it's very concerning to you, it's very important, and it consumes a lot of your attention. Cool that down, and here are a couple of tips on how to do that. The first thing, I've already mentioned this in other videos as well, remind yourself and have it in your heart that you are there to serve others. You are here to serve others. And again, this is not just socially, right? I mean, if you want to make money, how do you make money? You offer value to other people, whether it's by employment or by entrepreneurship or whatever else. You're selling value. That's literally, value is the only thing that is exchanged in the economy. It's the only thing that's exchanged. So remind yourself that you're here of service, and you're here to be, you know, one of the greatest like principles that you can take into the social arena is just having it in your heart that you want to be generous. You want to be there to give value and share love and share good vibes. And that will take so much of the pressure off of your shoulders of feeling like there's any like possibility of failure. I mean, when you're there to give, what chance is there for you to fail? Let me ask you a question. Let's say that I give you a $10,000 check, and I tell you to take this $10,000 check and go give it to some like beautiful girl walking over some, you know, like here, I'm on campus here right now. Say, you know, some beautiful girl walks by. If I told you to give her a $10,000 check, would you really be nervous to go approach her? I don't know, maybe you would. But if you knew that all you were doing was giving her the check of $10,000, would you really be nervous? Probably not, right? And the reason is because you know you're giving her value. You are enriching her life. And that's just one example, but the point is that if you can convince yourself that that same sort of, you know, I know with money it's very concrete, but when you replace the money with good vibrations and just love and humor and, you know, just like an experience that somebody wants to have, you know, wants their life to be interrupted by. Okay, so the next point here, similar sort of, I just say that failure is not a big deal. Okay, getting rejected, the more you experience that, the more you stumble with your words and you stumble up the learning curve in other ways, the more you're going to realize that it's not a big deal. And even more than that, when you really start to commit to this game and you start to fall in love with it and just want to play it more and more and more because it is so fun, you'll take those rejections and those stumblings, those awkward silences and stuff, and you will learn to laugh at them. And you will love laughing at them. You will love that they are a part of the journey, because you can, I know this sounds cliche as hell, but you can be with the girl or with the guy or with the group of people perfectly imperfect together. I know, I had to get it out, but yeah, okay, it's easy because you're not afraid of being imperfect. And again, what does that do to your fear of failure? Snatches it, just completely rips it to shreds. Because what is failure? If rejection is fun and amusing and humorous and it's lighthearted, doesn't matter, and awkward silences are like, you know, no big deal at all, you can laugh at them too, then what is failure? What is failure? Is there even a scenario for failure? And that actually brings me to my last point. The last strategy here for overcoming these self-destructive tendencies that you may be experiencing, especially in your social journey, with respect to the coping mechanism of the conflicting motivations, right? Desperation, or not desperation necessarily, but your desire to succeed and your fear of failure clashing with one another. The final strategy here is to relax. Relax. Let it be easy. Fall in love with the journey, and more accurately than that, I feel when I say fall in love with the journey, that sounds a little bit intimidating, right? Like, oh, I'm supposed to love everything about the journey. That sounds like so much. But when you really start playing this game, what you're going to realize is that it's not everything that you need to fall in love with. It's this. It's this right here, this moment. You listening to me right now. You know, the moment that you're listening to me right now. This is the same moment that you're going to share with the girl that you approach 2.5 years from now, or next week, or last weekend. Do you understand? It's this one moment, and you share it together. You're sharing it with me right now. And when you can fall in love with that moment, and of course, it's not like, you know, all or nothing. You learn to kind of go deeper and deeper into it with practice and meditation and other things as well. But you fall more and more deeply in love with that, and you kind of realize, it's not even like you have to really push yourself to do this. You just realize that the journey all together, all encompassing every single up and down wave, it's all perfect, my friend. And in that way, again, what is the fear of failure? What happens to your fear of failure? Your desire to succeed and your fear of failure. Because again, what is failure? What is failure? When you love the moment that is at hand, when you love this moment, which truly, if you think about it, is everything you have, everything you will ever know, think, experience, everyone you'll ever love, it is all experienced right here, right now. What is failure? Where is the failure? Where is the potential to fail? I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, don't forget to like it and consider subscribing. I wish you all the best of luck in eliminating this nasty phenomenon from your life. Thank you, and I will see you next week.